What up, folks? I am so excited. I get dude, it's Friday. The sun's out. It's 70 degrees. I live in San Diego, which is, I think, heaven on earth. And I am talking to one of the most experienced game designers, developers in the world, Kevin. Welcome, brother. I am amped.
Thank you, man. I am so happy to be here. I mentioned this to you when we had our intro call, but I've seen some of your podcasts and episodes before, and they just have such a unique format to them, which you probably have your own word for this, but they just feel so chill and relaxed and like two people's friends sitting on a couch. And I love that vibe so much. And I'm just like, we have to talk. Like, we got to chat.
Man. And it's cool that you say that. So you're an example. Kevin from Final Bosu came on, and his brother immediately reached out. He was like, dude, I didn't even know half that stuff. Like, I have to be on your podcast. And I was just talking to a founder. I had talked to 3 founders today, and I go through, like I said, I'm probably one of the few people that, if you're running a space, you're like, yeah, just show up. And it's the same cookie cutter stuff. Like, I vet every single person that comes on to make sure they're a good fit. And it creates more of a professional experience, I think. And it helps me get the content that we're looking for, because trust me, man, I've had people really, kind of pretty big founders, and I say, you know what, I can make some video content. It's just not going to be the right fit, because I think you really need the right person to have the thing that we're striving for. So I knew when I hung up the phone, because we were, not only was it late for both of us, we just went for a while. And I love video games. Your backdrop, so excited. So excited, man. So thank you for the kind words. And the last thing I was going to say, which I got excited about, and I forgot it. I already forget. I'm going to screw this podcast up way more than you will. So don't worry about it. What I was trying to say at first is what's really cool. And this has really been the last 4 to 5 months. You always talk about product market fit with even gaming or any type of company. Well, there's a product market fit for content as well, right? You need to find the right platform. You need to find your audience. I always knew that my content was never the right fit for Web3. I stayed with Web3 founders because I just loved it, because in the last 3 to 4 years, it's just been wag me, hype. If you're not going to make me money, I don't give a shit, right? But in the last 4 months, people are finally coming into the second wave of Web3. The whole AI meme coin thing just happened, and people are just finally done of getting burned. And now my brand is what people are looking for in Web3. So the space is evolving, and I knew that time would come. I just didn't know when. And we're here. And I think the next year is going to be an amazing year for both of us, because we're genuine human beings trying to do the right thing. So I'm super excited.
I see the exact same analogy in the games side of Web3, right? Everybody is sick and tired of the promises, the trust me bros, and everybody is just like, could someone please execute in this space and give me experiences and, product market fit with what I love, which is, in this case, gaming. Yeah. People are tired of not having that, and it's time for those to show and not tell.
Yeah. And I've absolutely seen that in the gaming space as well. And just through all verticals, and now, the latest thing right now is IPs, right? Everyone's building an IP, and it's I get it. Pudgy Penguins has done it the right way, but you can't just go off the back of Pudgy Penguins. And that's another thing that I really do vet and think about is who are the people that are actually have the best chance of building what they say they're going to build, right? Mm-hmm. So enough about me, enough about I'm just kidding. A little bit more about me. And that is just guests coming up real quickly. Been talking to a lot of really cool plays. Super excited about Dith from Gigaverse. This guy's been in Web3 for a little while. And he's built a functional product again. He's coming on Wednesday. Lots of other people. I'm also cooking up some of my OG friends, and I think I can't say anything quite yet, but I think we're going to be able to build one of the bigger versions of this in the space because I think it's our time. Like I said, the right people are building, and I think from the content creation side too. So we have an opportunity. So get excited about that. Now, enough about me. The rest is about you, Kevin. And we're going to go deep. We're going to go thoughtful. And I know somebody that is an aspiring game designer or just loves video games is going to hear your story. And it's fundamentally going to change the way they think about gaming and how they can do it themselves. But before we do that, we have to start off with just the real formal intro bio. I'm just going to kind of reread what was in the tweet because I think it was a nice, solid, succinct one, which obviously co-founder, chief product officer at Coin Games, creating Project O, making the digital tabletop game. What do you call it? A TC table card game, TCG, right?
Trading card game or
Trading
collectible card game. Yeah, TCG, CCG, card game.
CCG, whatever the acronym is, but digital with Web3 elements. And again, the end product is not an NFT, people. It is an actual gaming company with Web3 technology, 30-year game vet, which is the coolest thing. And I loved, this is my favorite part about this story when we were talking on the intro call. You just got to rebuild something pretty simple, which was solitaire, and it was played by billions, right? Billions of people. And it seems like something so simple, but like the amount of thought you put into building that game was insane. And then on top of it, you're seeing Dungeon Siege behind him and all of these other fun IPs. He's worked on a ton of things. You worked for Sierra Games, dude. Like, that makes me so excited. If anyone's born in the 80s and hasn't played a Sierra game, computer game, and you're saying you're a gamer, you're actually not a true gamer. This man helped build some of those IPs. And then on top of it, speaks, writes, thought leader. But here is the most exciting part. There's a little game called Dance Dance Revolution. And in the early 2000s, this dude you're looking at, were you the world champion or the US champion?
National. It was a national tournament in San Francisco in like 2003, I think it was. And yeah, those were good times.
National. You were looking at the national champion of Dance Dance Revolution in 2003. How did I do? Did I do you justice? Is there anything you want to add?
Oh, yeah, that was awesome, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. That was so
fantastic. Cool. And with that, we're here. World famous Mikey G Web3 question. How'd you get the seat you're sitting in today, Kevin? To reiterate for the audience that will listen to this on Spotify or on a podcast platform, episode 1 is your childhood. Now, again, like I said before, big question. Were you a tinkerer? Vivid memory that comes to mind. What were the mantras that your parents or your parental figures that you still live by today that really helped mold you as a human being? Episode 2, we already know that you've done tons of games. Tell us, though, in this real touch point on like schooling quick, like how did you get into the industry? But here I'm really interested in failures more than wins, because I think that's where the insights and the lessons learned come and the skill sets gained. And that, and what another I loved about our intro call is you got a lot of those lessons that prepped you for Web3, and it prepped you to do Web3 right. Then obviously episode 3 is Web3. And that's it, man. Have at it. I cannot wait to have this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, so where did it all start? I'm one of those really lucky people who people sometimes hate because they found their purpose so early in life and just went for it. Like
Yes.
there's this word, I don't know how to pronounce it. You've probably heard of it, ikigai or something like that. It's kind of this Venn diagram crossover of like, what do you love? What does the world need? What are you good at? And what can you be paid for, I think. And some people have like 2 out of 3 of those is pretty good. 3 out of 4 is great. And if you have all 4, you have found your purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it when I was, I think, like less than 10 years old. back when I was a kid in the 70s, the late 70s. I'm dating myself a little bit here.
Hey
But
man, I'm old too. Don't worry about it.
yeah, we're almost boomers,
Yeah,
here.
I'm
But
close.
like, yeah, in the old days, I just loved creating gaming experiences. And I think it was when I went to a roller skating rink as a child, picture Stranger Things, TV
Yeah.
show in the arcades, but like, maybe 5 to 10 years before that, when there was just a bowling alley or a roller skating rink with a couple of games in it.
Uh-huh.
And I saw the pinball machines and I saw the video games, and everybody else is like, we're here to roller skate. And I'm like, nope, whatever this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, how do I do this? And it's like the clouds parted and the angels sang. And they're like, get out on the roller skating. And they had to pull me by my ears out there.
Heck
And
no, ain't doing that.
yeah. And what's sad is that there was no like defined path of how to get into game design and game development.
Right.
Like at that time, you had to know somebody who knew somebody or get really lucky. And
Mhm.
that, there was no, what do I do? Where do I go? So I had to just immerse myself in the medium, which at that point was like, Mom, can you take me to the mall again? Can we go to the arcade again?
Yeah.
Can I, if I get my good grades, can I please use my allowance to buy a Nintendo Entertainment System? All of that. And, fortunately, my folks were, they didn't limit my screen time. If I had screen time limiting parents, we would not be in this seat today 100%. So I'm so thankful for that.
Dude,
But
that's so awesome.
I had to just play every game known to man and imagine what it would be like to work in this field. And then now there are a lot of schools you can go to, like people who are looking to get into
Yeah.
games today. You could be a programmer, an artist, a game designer. They have tracks and programs for all of that. They
Yep.
didn't have any of that when I was growing up. So
Yep.
I had to guerrilla it, so to speak.
So you already, I mean, you gave me enough information where we could talk for a really long time, but you actually brought up something, and this is I don't remember. Are you a father? Do you have kids?
I have a daughter, and my wife has two. Yes.
So same thing with me. And this is like this is what we do on the podcast. Like we're gonna go on a wild tangent here, but I'm really deeply interested in your answer here, which is screen time, right? I mean, I have a 19-month-old now, and I'm just like, the doctors are like, no screen time ever, and really like hardcore about it. Obviously, there's research out there. And I feel like our generation played video games, watched a ton of TV, and we're all right. Is it really the advent of social media, which is where it went wrong? Like, what are your thoughts there?
I do think so. Like there's screen time that's got some productive value, or you could argue has productive value, right? Gives you skills, it helps you learn things. And then there's screen time that's maybe more questionable value, where you're not paying attention to the family at dinner because you're down on your phone, and
Right.
you're just getting that next dopamine hit every 3 seconds on social media. So I do tend to align to what you just said about that.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's just it's more confusing, it's more complex. I think the dopamine thing is real, and I was even actually talking to a parent yesterday, and that she was like, my kid could not watch Cocomelon because it's just this like high intense nonstop, and they were starting to go crazy a little bit.
Dude, Cocomelon is awesome. I don't disparage that show. That's cool. That's good stuff.
No, but I'm saying it's good
I know.
certain ages though, right? Like there's some ages that it's just like it's too intense, right?
Yeah.
And it creates too much excitement for them, and they just don't quite know how to handle that yet, right?
Yeah. I know a lot of people, in fact, some members of my family included, who are very, in the screen time limiting, go outside or you're not getting life kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just different perspectives,
Yeah, and I don't think, listen, at the end of the day, this is where I always end up. As long as they feel safe and they feel loved, and you're not using these tools as a crutch for parenting, I think you're going to be okay.
Hmm.
That's my take. Any thoughts there?
I like that take. I like that take a lot. In addition to allowing screen time perhaps more than the average Gen Z, I think we were also in our generation. It was just like, hey, it's 1:30 in the afternoon, lunch is over. I'm out of here. You just leave the house. Parents don't know where you're going. As long as you're back by dinner, they don't care. It's cool. Now, you just don't see that, right? It's so weird. Like, wait, your kid's gonna go out. You don't know where they are. Are you
Yeah,
sure you're parenting well?
yeah,
Thing.
yeah. No, dude. I mean, it was such a different time. And I was just talking to the founder before this. I think, and this is why I just get frustrated that people that are our age don't take advantage of, because I already have a lot of friends that are like, AI, what? I don't want to think about that. And I'm like, guys, we are I think, the greatest tech generation that ever lived, in the sense that I grew up playing a mile away from my house, knocking on my buddy's door, saw the evolution of video games. Now I'm going to raise a son that will know nothing else other than AI. And I'm like, this is such a huge opportunity for us. And we all should be so excited about it. Why are they not, Kevin? Why?
I'm the same way. I look at conveniences, and like I'm a user experience DNA. Like that's what runs in my blood. When someone finds an easier way to open a door or do something you do every day and it makes your life better, I'm like, man, that's awesome. And I look for those kind of things all the time. AI being an example of one of those, right?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Super pumped up about the future and what we can do. And you're doing amazing things. I can't wait to get to that. But we're still not there yet. I feel like we haven't like fully cracked the egg on the childhood. And here's some things that maybe some questions
Hmm.
to go a little bit down. So I actually am really interested in this because the Ikigai, I know there's a lot of I got a big Asian community that's just gonna destroy me online because I know I did not I mispronounced that. But my question is, and this is the reflective part of the podcast, which I love. Is there any negatives? And I like, me personally, I can't think, but are there any negatives of finding that at such a young age? Or it is just all gravy and you are so excited that you found it at a young age?
In my case, I would put it more in the latter category. Like it gave me something to chase after. I didn't have that awkward period of like, what are you going to do? I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Like I didn't go through that because I had a dream, I had a passion, and I could not get there fast enough during those years and during
Right.
that time. And
Right.
even now, 30 years later into it, I'm still like, there's more. I know it, and I got to find it.
Yes. And that's what I think though is, and I just don't, because I've found it obviously with this, right? I keep on thinking to myself, how can I make it better? How can I get a bigger network? What are more types of content I can create? How can I just be in front of the camera and talk to amazing people like yourself more? And what I'm getting at is, if you do find that, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is for me personally, keeps the motivation to learn and be creative at such a high level for me. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it keeps you engaged. It keeps your brain going because you're like people ask me, are like, you going to be retiring at some point soon? What's that look like for you? And I'm like, retire? Like what? So I can go sit on an island somewhere and do what? Like what I want to do is make games and experiences, and like I guess I could do that from Bora Bora. That would be awesome. But like I want to stay. It's like I'm gonna, even when and if I have the financial freedom to retire, like there's no way I'm gonna stop making video games because it's like what I would rather do on a Tuesday or a Friday evening or a Saturday afternoon.
Yes. And
You
when
know,
by the way, when we both get there, guess who I'm calling first to make my video game with? Your boy Kevin. Like that's
absolutely
absolutely happening in my
love it.
lifetime. And you know what I've gotten really into? And I don't know why, because I was never this person, but like roguelites and any of these dungeon crawler, generative games like Binding of Isaac or what's the other one? Enter the Gungeon. I'm playing Halls of Torment on my iPhone right now.
Mm-hmm.
But what I love about it is for people that are busy like us, I can play for like 5 to 10 minutes and then set it down and then just move on with my life. Like that works for me right now with my lifestyle. What are your thoughts on those types of games? Love them, hate them, annoy you?
Well, what you just described about what you love about those games is the short session nature
Yeah.
of it, right?
Yeah.
The I don't have to commit half an hour to this experience or 45 minutes and sorry, I can't get dinner right now. Like it's these short, and so you can put those back to back, and a lot of folks love that about casual and mid-core games, not because they're simpler, not because they don't have the depth or the complexity to them, but because you can play them in without committing a ton of time. And if you want to jam 4 hours worth of back-to-back sessions, you can, but you don't have to. And
Right.
that's what I heard you say.
Yeah.
And then there's the roguelite side of that, which is the, generative changes every time.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about that part, the roguelite part.
Tell me.
Yeah. I love the short session. Me too. As I get older, I love the optionality of,
Yeah.
I make my own time commitment and I can check out whenever I need to.
Mm-hmm.
Same with me. I used to not care, like an hour and a half guaranteed commitment. That's fine back in the day, but no longer. But the roguelite side is this, the generative part. And, I compare a great roguelite to a great handcrafted experience. And, and it's tough because the handcrafted experiences are so good.
Yeah.
And the best roguelites I've ever played are like Hades and Dead Cells and, some of the names everybody knows. Binding of Isaac is really great too. I've played most of these. But, the ones
you have not played that.
Yeah, I played Enter the Gungeon. Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Twin stick shooters. And, sometimes, after you've played them a lot, you're like, the thing I like most about those kind of games is that I feel like they're like eating kettle corn. This is a weird analogy, but bear with me for this one.
I love it.
When you put, if you're a kettle corn enjoyer, you'll reach in there and you get a bite and maybe it's a little too salty. You take another bite, maybe it's got too much sugar, and then you get that perfect bite and you're like, oh, I need more, and you can't stop eating it because it's like a slot machine and you just keep trying for that perfect bite. And that's what I feel like playing roguelites, sometimes your run sucked, other times you like get that god run and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to play again to get another one of those. And that's what I like most about them. And that's why I like playing those games. But when I'm really looking for a nice handcrafted experience that I can, ask other people, how did you get by that? And what happened when the character said this, when I want to talk about it in that way, I tend to lean towards the more handcrafted experiences.
Right. Yeah. And because again, like what you're saying, I also heard too is, at the end of the day, no matter what genre it is, it just has to be good, right? It has to be a good, well-built game. And there's so many, and same analogy for Web3, right? There are so many games out there because people are just trying to make money. They don't have the experience and they're just slapping something together. And that happens in Web3 all the time. It happens in any industry. And these fundamental principles that we talk about on this podcast time and time again, which is understanding something by doing it for a long period of time, like yourself, understanding the fundamentals, building sound products because of a mission and vision greater than money, applies to games as well, right? And so if you're doing these fundamental principles, it really doesn't matter what genre you're building it in, it will bubble to the top. Now, I'm sure you have perspective on like this day and age, it's harder and harder to bubble to the top because you have to have some connections still and you have to have some money to break through the clutter, and there's so much clutter. But the principles is what I'm getting at, doesn't change. Let me ask you this. The way I describe what you found at 10 years old, is finding. I always use the Tiger Woods analogy. He just came into life inherently good at golf and then worked harder than anybody else. That's why he's the best, one of the best golfers that ever played, right? Is it that same feeling that you got at 10 years old as like, because I'm interested in this inherent and innate ability, right? And I think I found that with the podcast and myself of like, not only am I deeply passionate about it, the way I was raised and the way that my mom treated me, and being able to be genuine and connect with people just like comes naturally to me at this point because I've been doing it for so long. What are your thoughts on like what Ikigai means to you or how you have experienced it?
That's a great question. I do think I have some, what like DNA injected skills and talent. Like if you looked at my D&D character sheet, I do have some numbers that are, some points that are higher in some areas, like we all do, right?
Mhm.
Dexterity being one of those. Like I'm good at racket sports. I'm good at games. I'm good at, controllers and things.
Yeah.
But I think, and music is another one. I think the other area is just connecting to what other people enjoy and
Mhm.
me wanting to deliver that. Like I think the first time I ever that pick perked up for me and I realized that it was something I cared about
Yeah.
was like I was probably even younger than 10. Maybe it was around that age. And I would be like in the doctor's office, when you're in the waiting room and all the other kids are out there and everybody's nervous and not wanting to be there. And like, man, I have to go see the doctor. This is going to suck. And so, everybody has this sense of like despair about them anyways,
Yeah.
while the parents are, knitting or reading the magazines or whatever.
Right.
And so I'm in there and I'm just like, looking around, and I would take a little piece of paper and crumple it up, and I would, elbow one of the other kids who's sitting next to me, and I'd be like, "Hey, see that plant potter in the corner? 50 points if you can get this in there. 100 if you bank it off two of the walls." And his eyes would light up, and he's like, "All right, let's go." Right.
Yeah.
And so I realized, man, I'm making these like game experiences. I'm gamifying life before I even knew what it was called.
Yeah.
And just realizing not only do I really enjoy that, but I kind of feel like I have a natural talent for it. Cause like,
Yeah.
I think the games weren't bad at the time. I mean, they're probably bad, but like
Right.
they enjoyed them and I
Right.
enjoyed watching and
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
And it's again, the other way that people describe it is like being in the zone or, because it's just like a natural extension of you or your being is another way that I'm hearing what you're saying. And I do think that's important. And it brings up one of the other questions, which again, I ask a lot of the same questions over the podcast, but it's just fascinating the range of answers that I get. And the easy follow-up question to me is people really struggle with this, right? People go their whole lives, and they know they want to find their passion or they want to be good at something. But there's this self-defeating talk that they always go through and they end up never finding it, unfortunately.
Mhm.
My question to you is, through your experience, what would your advice be to someone younger? And it doesn't have to be video games, right? But like, how do you find that? I have an answer, and I'm interested to hear yours before I lead you into it.
Man, there's two perspectives. One of them is stumbling upon it like I did,
Yeah.
and then there's the other one is like searching for it. And
Mhm.
I didn't have the searching for it experience,
Mhm.
but I had the stumbling upon it, and it's sort of like realizing your high rolls in life and what you're good at or what you love.
Yeah.
And I remember the same experience that I had. This isn't video game related, but I was in this was kindergarten or first grade, and the teacher had this thing where we would come into class, all the kids are talking,
Yeah.
and the way she shut everybody up and got the day started was she had this tuning fork, and she would be like, "Okay," and she wouldn't even say, "Okay, class." She would just be, she would knock it on the table and then put it on the chalkboard. And when you put a tuning fork on a chalkboard, it goes, "Woo," it's really loud, and that's
Mhm.
how she shut everybody up, right?
Right.
So she would do that every day, and that's how the day started. And then one day, about a quarter of the way through the semester, whatever they were back in that day, she said she would take the tuning fork, and we were all waiting for her to hit it. And she would be like, "Can anyone hum the tone, the note that this will be?" And I was like, I just thought, and I'm like, I could hear it in my head. I'm like,
Yeah.
so I raised my hand, and she's like, and I was like, ah, and she was like, she'd hit it, and I had the pitch perfectly.
Right.
And that was when I realized I could just hear notes. Like that was an A on the scale.
Yeah.
So at that point, I realized like I could tell you what an A is. I could tell you what a C is. And I'm like, she's like, you need to get into choir or some music class, as a result of that.
Right. Yeah. No. And that is it. And I think there are two things. One, there's two very big things that you said. Is there's a self-awareness piece, and that probably in my mind is the hardest piece, right? Because it takes some pretty deep conversation with yourself to like yourself. Sometimes it just clicks, but your self-awareness piece, it's a never-ending conversation till the day you die, right? And you've had more and more of those over time, but I think that's the hardest piece, because the other part is then, okay, I'm self-aware, what is that thing? And to me, that's just a product of repetition of trying new things, right? Whether you stumble upon it or intentionally do it, as long as you're in the mindset of like, I will never stop exposing myself to new things. If you have that self-awareness piece figured out, I think you eventually find it.
I think the other piece to this, the other half of that exact equation that you just said is, I don't know what to call this, but some version of giving yourself grace and permission to try these things. Like, well, it's not like, let's say you love to paint. Well, I could never do that because there's no future in it. And
Right.
then you just cut yourself off from that opportunity
Yeah.
because you have these negative associations with something. It'll never work. Like I can't see a future. And it doesn't matter. You just have to allow yourself to try that and tell yourself it's going to be okay. We're just trying stuff out here. We're just seeing what's out there. And you never know. You never know what moons might align for you when you try stuff like that.
100%. And I do love that insight and the grace. Grace is such a great word, man. Grace is such a great word. And I absolutely think you nailed it. Amazing conversation already. I knew this was going to be fantastic. I do want to get one more kind of like insight into the childhood, because we know at 10 years old, when you found that video game, there was a lot of game playing and stuff, and you're evolving there. So I think we got that piece. What I'm interested in, though, is mindset and mantras from this time, whether it was your parents or things that you still think about today, whether this is be a good human being, work hard, diversity, whatever these things are. I'm really interested in what resonates with you.
Well, I come from the South,
Okay.
Texas, and there's a lot of crazy that comes from Texas. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of bad. The thing that I remember most about that was a warm general etiquette, a Southern politeness. People, move out of the way in the fast lane when you're coming up behind them. They open the door for you. They wave at you on the street. This warm, hey, I just want to get to know you kind of thing that when I moved up to the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area, it's very, very different. People are colder here. They're nice people, don't get me wrong, but
for sure.
there's the Seattle freeze. Oh, we should totally do lunch sometime. Totally not calling him back. That kind of thing. It's just very different cultures, and that I don't. It's not like my parents raised me to be that way. It's just that I was in an environment where that's the way people were.
Yeah,
and it fit. It was a match for me. It wasn't like not going to be like that. I got to get away from this. It was like, yes, that's where I want to be. So I do think that resonated with me very early on as a child.
dude, that's a fabulous insight because of, and I've used this actually the last couple of podcasts. The only reason I got my hacked Twitter account back was because of somebody that I knew. and somebody that I knew, and this is the difference. I love because you have like really cool additional insights to what I'm saying. You're agreeing, but you're like, yes, and I love the yes and concept. But it is your network, but you have to connect with your network. I think too often in this day and age, people are like, oh, I've got the biggest network in the world. I know X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, well, do you know their last name? Or do you know what they like? No one can answer those questions, but I can. And that is, and it's big, right? It's taken me close to 5 years to build it, but I've built it the right way. And again, this goes back to building things the right way. Any yes and moments to that about networking and the reason I brought this up is to get to that, you need to be kind, man. You need to be able to understand how to start a conversation that gets people drawn in. Part of that is kindness. Any other thoughts there?
Totally. And what's even crazier is that when I reflect back on my childhood, like people see me talk on interviews or speak up on stage or, promote our game or roundtable on Twitter Spaces, and they're like, "Wow, you've got a lot of energy and you seem kind of extroverted." I am so not an extrovert, and when I was a kid, it was even more. I was a massive, massive introvert, and I had zero self-awareness.
Yeah.
Like I would do things and I could tell you stories and you'd be like, you did that to that guy? And I would be like, I know, I was not even considering anyone else's feelings. Whereas now I feel like I am 180 degrees from I'm still an introvert. I still recharge by being in quiet, intimate environments and small groups, conversations. But like my self-awareness is like 180 degrees from where it was when I was a child. And
what are your like one advice to somebody? Because let's be honest, a lot of gamers are introverts, right? They play games because there is a gateway to meet people, but you can do it behind a screen or a PFP. That person that's hearing you and saying like, dude, this guy's speaking on stages that'll never be me. What is it there?
I think, and this is true of even gamers. There's always something. I don't care what it is. It could be stamp collecting. It could be video games. It could be food that you enjoy. There's always some topic that will get somebody their eyes will light up and they'll come out of the shell and just start yapping. And you got to find what that is and just lean into it. For me, it happened to be video games. So I could talk about video games with anyone in the world for hours. And then when they're like, what about sports? Maybe not. Right? That's just not my passionate topic, right? So, but once you find that, you'd be surprised how easy it is. I think even introverts would be like, yeah, before I knew it, an hour had gone by and we were still geeking out about whatever it was.
Dude, and again, same principles time and time, because this is what the top salespeople will tell you. I just figure out how to relate to them, and I have a repertoire of anything, and I will find that one thing. And again, these are just very simple principles, but it works absolutely in the socialization thing too. I think there is something about, and this is learned over time, of like, and so I actually can't even explain this, and I'd love your thoughts on just the concept of genuinity, right? Like, I have had many people say, like, I can tell you're genuine through a screen typing on a keyboard and like feel energy without even seeing my video. I think that is just something inherent, learned over time. I think it's part of how my mom was always so filled with love and joy and energy. And we always had just like this, dance parties and exciting, what I felt, energy in our house. So I think it's just ingrained in me. What are your thoughts there on how you think people acquire being genuine or exuding that? Because this is it's a very important thing, I think, to be successful.
Yeah, this is a hypothesis, but I think I have the secret to finding that, what you call genuinity. And if you don't have it, you can level it up and get it in a couple of weeks, perhaps. Maybe it'll take like longer. So test my hypothesis and tell me if this resonates with you. But I think that this boils down to you. If we were looking at your character sheet,
Yeah.
it would be your humility stat, right?
Ooh.
It's how humble are you, right? And don't mistake humility for the opposite of, you know, confidence, which it's not. It goes hand in hand with confidence. It
Yeah.
might be the opposite of arrogance, but
Yeah.
it's not it does not have to be outside of confidence. Um, and if you have a high humility stat, if you're willing to reflect, and then when you talk to people, they can feel that, they can detect that. And in my experience, your relationships will be better. People will say things like, "You're so genuine, I can feel it." Like, you get those kind of comments. And I think it comes down to your humility. What do you think?
Dude, you said it in a different way. By the way, I just gotta I gotta take I love how you're relating character stats to our conversation. Like, you're
Sorry,
one of
it's
the
my
few.
curse. Yeah.
No, no, this is amazing. You're one of the few people, if only people, that will ever be on this podcast talking about these fundamental concepts of a character sheet. I love it. Humility is absolutely right. Um, but a form of this, and this is actually the actual practice, and this is why I've been able to cultivate this like super niche brand in something that I think is critical for the future of humanity, which is like genuinely humanly connecting, especially with all the AI and everything going on. Is it's just listening, man. You're literally just listening deeply, and you deeply care about what they're saying, and they don't even have to feel. They feel it by when you reply with like a thoughtful question from what they
Mhm.
said. They're like, holy shit, this person was actually listening to me.
Yeah.
Because in this day and age, nobody does that anymore.
It's a huge life
Great.
hack. And if
It's
anybody is
huge.
listening to this, you can use that at work. You can use that at home. That hack is free and it has massive benefits.
We just gave you the multi-million-dollar tip.
100%.
It 100% is true. And we definitely have people listening, and they're all probably writing that down right now.
Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and they asked zero questions and they
Yeah.
just kind of they either wanted to just talk about themselves or they just didn't seem interested? And if you contrast that with someone who did the opposite of that and how you felt after those conversations, it's insane.
Oh, so refreshing, man. So refreshing. So let's do this. Believe it or not, we've already been talking for 45 minutes. We haven't even gotten anywhere in video games or Project O ultimately. So let's go to episode 2. You can touch on anything in kind of like high school if you want to, or we could just start really jumping to, you have a really storied career. And I, again, framing this in the context of lessons learned, aha moments, insights. I can't wait to hear this part.
Yeah, I actually started out as a programmer, not because I'm like programming is my goal, but because it
Right.
was my way to get the foot in the door. My parents were like, "We love your games passion, but we don't understand it. Is there anything that you could do or be passionate about that we understand and that we believe you could find a career in the can
Yeah.
I make
Yeah.
money with it corner of the ikigai?" And I was like, "Well, I like computers. I'm a geek, so maybe computer programming." And they were like, "Oh my God, this is awesome! You could write software for a bank. If your whole games thing doesn't work out, which we hope it does, and we love it. We love it. We support you 100%. Go do that." And I was like, okay. Like, I went to go do that purely to get into game design.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, like, let's do that, right? And so my first job was there was a game studio. You probably remember the name Monolith.
Oh, yeah.
Rest in peace. They just shut down recently after
Wow.
decades. It was so sad. But I was one of the first employees there as a programmer. And I still remember the interview where I'm like, hey guys, I'm interviewing for this programming position. And I brought my resume and a few demos that I had made myself. I coded up a few little games because I would just do that. And they were like, "You made these?" And I was like, "Yeah, there's 3 of them and there's no AI, but you can play." And they were like, "Let's just go get food and talk." Like, they just kind of stopped and they just wanted to get to know more about me at the time,
Yeah.
because it was obvious I had a deep passion for creating games and they really liked to see that. And I didn't just tell them what I could do. I actually built some things, and so that was fun.
I just want to cut in here.
Yeah,
This
go ahead.
is another $1 million life hack. Actually show that you can do something you're passionate about. Like, bring something tangible. Like, it's even in this day and age, I still think that is a hugely impactful thing. Because so many people just lip service nowadays. And
It absolutely is. And I used to give talks for how to get into the games industry, and you hit it on the head
yeah,
with the number one way to put yourself ahead of 97% of applicants.
yeah,
So this is the trick. This is the $1 million how to get into the games industry section of the podcast that you can bookmark.
yeah.
And the answer is really simple. You probably got a favorite game that you'd love to work for. Maybe it's Blizzard. I'd love to work on World of Warcraft. I'd love to work on Hearthstone. I'd love to go work on Marvel Rivals, whatever it is. You play the heck out of that game. Do something that improves it for you.
Yeah.
Even if it's the narrative, it's the writing, write a paragraph. If it's the level design, see if there's a tool where you can make a level. If it's the characters, I made my own version of Venom. Like, what do you think? And send that to the studio along with your application. And I guarantee you that will fast track it to the team, and they will get back to you, because nobody does that.
Yeah. I don't get it. Like, they're concerned about SEO and keywords on their resume. Who gives a shit? I mean, it's and even experience. Here's the crazy part. There are people that have insane experience, but did it for the wrong reasons. Like we were talking about just in life in general. Well, that happens in careers as well, too. Some of the best people that I've ever hired on my teams had the passion and showed they had the passion through X, Y, and Z, right? I had somebody on my team that took the extra mile, and they wanted to be a photographer and a creative, but they were doing like a service job, right? And they did not have the background or the resume at all, but I saw that passion. Best person in the world I ever hired.
Yeah, you hear these stories all the time about companies or game studios hiring folks from the community who have that passion, and they're showing their work every day. And they're just like, let's pluck that guy out and see if he would be a good fit. You can just hack that yourself. Did you
100%.
ever do that in your in your line of work? Did you ever, you're like, before I got started, I just went and showed people stuff, or did things for folks?
Oh, dude. Absolutely. Well, one, this podcast is me repetition and showing, right? I didn't care what anybody thought, and I've done this for years now, and now I'm talking to amazing people like you. But in my career, I was fortunate in the sense that I was I went to design school. So you actually had to produce something to apply for a job. But funny enough, I got my first real job was at Geico Car Insurance. Well, yeah, they created a big brand, but I got hired as a designer. I know that not many people were walking in with their like handmade portfolio, which I did. And I went through every piece of artwork that I was really proud of. And I know that's why I got the job. And then two, here's the other life hack. And it is a version of this. Once I got that job, every job after that, other than becoming kind of like the head of brand and production, that job didn't exist. And the job that I created for myself, I literally did that, right? I said, I'm going to create a new job title, and here's what I've done, and here's how I would do it. And it was shown through doing. And then I'm not like, the coveted job at Geico was making the TV commercials, right? I was there in the sweet spot where like the Geico Hump Day Camel commercial was being made, and we came out with Maxwell the pig, and we had all the caveman stuff going on. It was like at the height of the advertising. Everyone in the world wanted that job.
Totally.
And at the time, the lady that had it, she decided, was building a family and decided to like out of nowhere retire, right? And so of course everyone in the department is like, CMO, I want the job that, but again, a bunch of lip service. Dude, I wrote like a 3-page heartfelt letter and listed out every reason why I should have that job. And I went and hand delivered a written letter in 2010 to my CMO at his desk. Guess who didn't do that? The rest of the department.
Yeah, that's
Who
awesome.
got the job? This boy.
You know, that story resonates so well with me because that is almost exactly how I got the job as a lead designer on Dungeon Siege 2 at Gas Powered Games. So this was my second, after I left Monolith, finally shed the programming shackles and got into full-time game design, which was really a weird transition. It was like you wake up in the morning and you have an idea, and by the afternoon, that idea is in the game because you put it in yourself.
Right.
Going from that to almost like feeling like a sculptor with no hands, where you're like, hey guys, could we maybe, move that thing over there? And what if there was a bigger explosion? And yeah. And you're building consensus with other people. And that was a weird transition, from doing. But I started on Dungeon Siege 2 as an assistant designer, help us out with some of the little systems. And the game was just starting in its concept phase. And I was like, the vision, I can see that people aren't rallying around the vision. I'm like, I can do this. So I marched right into the CEO, Chris Taylor, amazing, brilliant game designer and product creator at the time. He made Total Annihilation back in the day.
Oh my gosh, I played that game for hours,
dude. And he made Dungeon Siege 1, but his heart and soul was in RTS games, and here he was working on a sequel to an RPG, which was my passion, and he wanted to get into and he was balancing really difficultly both the RTS and the RPG. And I'm like, Chris, why don't you let me take the lead on the RPG? Here's what I could do. I used to do programming, so I could talk to your dev team and they will, and speak their language. Mm-hmm. I can land this plane, and here's my vision for it. It's going to take all the things we've talked about, and it's going to really, this is what's going to be better about it. This will be different. And he's like, all right, you got it. So I just, after that moment, which was very similar to what you just described, I found myself leading a team of 45 people, which was, imposter syndrome was raging at that time.
Oh, yeah.
But it was all good. It was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I'm not a numbers guy. I am not you want to talk about imposter syndrome. Here is all of a sudden, by the way, it wasn't even like, I didn't even have, my CMO was an interesting cat, brilliant cat. But like when it came to like formally doing things, it wasn't like, he never even told me I had the job. There's just a department-wide email saying Mike's moving downstairs. And like, this is true too. This is another information for corporate America for you people. When you're not working from them, if you go into the office physically, the person sitting closest to the person that has power has a massive advantage. And there was a specific reason that my desk was in front of his door, because he was super passionate about advertising and Geico and branding. Obviously, this guy was the person that said yes to the gecko, right? And so I got that seat. And
so good.
I'm sitting in this seat. They're like, oh, by the way, you have $100 million budget, and you need to understand how to do agency retainers and media spend and all of these. I'm like a design creative graphic designer guy. Imposter syndrome. I didn't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how do you handle that? I would love to know how you got over that.
It took time. I've had that several times throughout my career. You think you're done with it the first time. Nope. Like, it's as you get into something new, crazy and scary, you're going to have it again.
Yeah.
I even have it now. Like, still 30 years later, I still have it sometimes.
Yeah.
I've been looking at our game. I know we'll talk about it in a bit, but I've been looking at our game for months, and I'm like, are they going to like it? Like, I'm not sure.
Cool.
Like, it's definitely out there. And I think after you've been through it a couple of times, the first time it was agony. Like I'm talking to my friends. I'm like, they're gonna figure me out. Like I need to be ready to get a plane flight home because they're
Yeah,
gonna kick me out of here, right?
yeah.
And then after you get through that, you're like, okay, all right, you have to trust yourself, and it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to do that, but you have to just be like, it's sort of like, hey, the last time I went on the roller coaster, we didn't fly off and die, so we'll probably
Yeah.
get through it again.
Yeah. I have it's interesting that you say that, because I do think there's times, and somebody might relate to this when I say it. I have like a very more drastic reference point, which is my whole mental health major depressive order. I don't remember if I even mentioned this to you, but I actually revisit this a lot, and it's the weirdest tool that I've acquired through the hardest time of my life, which is I went through this near-death experience. I got on the train. I went to downtown San Francisco every day. I was a senior leader at a startup, and I did that all, never got fired, never quit, got a new job, almost dying this entire time, and then got out of it. And I think to myself so often, if I can do that, there literally is nothing in the world I can't do.
That's an awesome reference point. Yeah, because it's like when people tell you, you just have to tell yourself this, or you just have to calm yourself down. That's
Right.
BS. Right? I mean, it's great
BS.
advice, but it's really hard to execute that. And
Mhm.
having an anchor point like you just mentioned, where
Yeah.
you're like, I think back to this thing I did, and I'm like, as a reference point, like, dude, this thing is so much easier than that thing. That
Yeah.
is really good.
Yeah. And it is the a practical example of taking risk and learning, right? Is because you have to have a physical reference point or a memory to go back to, or else it's all. And I love that you brought that up, because I'll tell you I want to tell you the most frustrating thing in the world is when your mind is completely in the shitter and you go on social media and it's just all these people saying, think positive and if you manifest it, blah, 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 blah. And it's like people, the actual people that need the real advice, one, this is not helping. My chemicals in my brain are not even firing correctly.
Totally.
And everything that you're saying as a non-expert just makes the situation worse. So
Yeah.
exact kind of reason or example of what you're saying and how it actually doesn't help people.
Yeah. I at some point in my life, and I don't know when it was, I just decided that this is gonna sound weird. I decided that if I wanted to do anything, I could do it. If I really cared about something, I could do it. And
Yeah.
that's the whole, like, yeah, you can do anything you put your mind to. It's bull crap. But I mean, to just accept that if you don't believe it. But at
Yeah.
some point, and I think it's my competitive spirit. I channeled that competitive spirit into it. I got good at a couple of things and probably used them like anchor points. Like, geez, if I can win that competition, I could probably do this other thing, like you just said.
Yeah.
And it's probably baby stepping off of those little accomplishments into believing you can do anything that you put your mind to. And you can't just get there. You have to stepping stone to it. But I eventually got there, and now I truly believe, maybe not in the things I cannot physically do anymore. Like, I can't win a weightlifting competition anymore.
Right.
But as far as the things my body is capable of doing and my mind is capable of, if I wanted to be number one in the world, I absolutely feel like I could just toss everything aside, laser focus, and do that.
Yeah, and this is like, dude, we're just dropping million dollar tidbits of success after $1 million tidbits of success. And this is awesome, because one of the things that you said, like, I'm giving pretty vivid examples, but what you said is a lot of times, like you said, you were doing something that inherently maybe you weren't even calling out of, like, oh, I had this experience that allowed me to level up and understand that I could do it. But I actually think it's a good exercise to try to force yourself to think about those moments, right? To come up with some reference points. Like, mine was just kind of like force fed down my throat and I had to deal with it. But you just mentioned there were a couple things already that, oh yeah, maybe those are my reference points. I think that's such a not profound, but like a very helpful tip to get through these shitty times.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do think forcing yourself to think of those. I mean, some of the best advice I've gotten during hard times was someone highlighting something that I already knew
Yep.
and just did not think about, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
that whole forcing yourself to think about what you've accomplished, the things that you've done well, things that might relate to whatever you're trying to do. It's very powerful.
We are dropping bomb after bomb. I knew this was going to be incredible. This is amazing. So you get this big wig job. You're working on finally like some RPGs. You're super amped up. Give me, maybe 2 to 3 more points in this video game career, and then we can get into Web3 because, like I said, do you have a hard stop, by the way?
Nope.
Okay. Unfortunately, I can go maybe 5-10 minutes past 4. So I got about another half hour. And obviously we want to talk about Project Go. I said this, Tim, and I really mean this with you too. Like, I hope this is the first of many conversations that we have, because I think over time, as this builds, we can build some like really cool, authentic content. And when it, bring in the game, and we can even have more conversations. But I hope this is the first of many, because it's already been incredible.
Absolutely. I said this during our intro call, but I didn't ask how many viewers. I usually ask this, but with you, I did not ask how many people are going to be listening to the stream, like measuring the value proposition, because I really don't care. If you had said, I got 3 viewers, I would be like, I'm still super jazzed about having this conversation. And I mean it. Like, that's totally.
Thanks,
so TLDR, absolutely would love to have a follow-up with you.
Awesome, man. And, I'm so excited that this is
I'll give you a couple other points on the career, and then we can get into Web3. So, I mean, like my DNA is user experience, player experience. It always has been. And, the only thing that's changed as I've done all these game development jobs is I've learned and respected more the other disciplines. Like, programmers think about things this way, producers think about things this way. As a business owner, you have to have fiscal responsibility and think about things this way. Like, my DNA will always be user experience, and when it comes to it, in terms of like something has to give. But when you can put on those other hats and be like, all right, we can't just be irresponsible with our funding. We have to find something that also has a great user experience. You learn to balance those. And that's what the last few jobs I've had have really done for me. Most recently, my 12 years at Microsoft. So I'll just touch that, and then we'll get into it.
Oh, touch that, please, because I loved the stuff that you talked about in the intro call.
So I remember the interview really, really well. They were like, hey, this is before Windows 8 was announced.
Yeah.
And they said, how would you like to work on the classic casual games that used to come with Windows, like Solitaire, like Minesweeper, like Mahjong? And they never made any money, right? Back in the day, they didn't have retention. They didn't have those kind of stats. So like, how would you like to modernize them, help them have, new cool features, bring retention into these games, stickiness, and find a way to have them make revenue from a world where they had never done that before without pissing off players. Does that sound interesting to you? And my mouth, I had to close my jaw, and I was like, Solitaire, like the #1 game in history? Would I like to redesign that? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, you had me at Solitaire. Like I said that, and they laughed, and I was just like, man, and that's when the imposter syndrome came in. I'm like, man, what if I'm the guy that messes up Solitaire like that? And I don't want to go down in history as that, but oh my God, the opportunity, right? And Solitaire is a game that's not going to be on the front cover of the gaming magazines, because it's got like all 45 plus year old, mostly female folks working on it. But it is the #1 played game in history, and I just could not even believe the opportunity that was in front of me to redesign it. And so I did that, and it was insane. And the casual game studio started out with just a business guy and me. Like, got really smart businessman. His name was Paul. He and I co-founded the studio. And what that did was it made the DNA of the studio and the culture there this balance between business and design, or revenue and customer experience, right? And when you have that at the leadership level of a studio, the whole DNA is different. Many people don't know this, but if you're at a traditional game studio,
Yeah.
the game designers with all the awesome, gameplay and user experience ideas, they have to pitch those to the
Yeah.
leadership team.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the leadership team says, great idea, but we need to make money right now, so we'll keep that on the back burner. It's awesome. Keep pumping that stuff out, but not right now. And the game designer's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's fair. And that sucks. That really sucks when you can compare that to a world where you can have someone on the leadership team who already is fighting for the customer experience, and now you can just naturally have a balance of that, like a yin and a yang with the revenue opportunity. I experienced that for the first time at Microsoft, and I'm like, I don't ever want to go back to a world where the designers have to pitch to leadership and get shot down of a great customer experience.
Yeah.
And so when I went to move on to Web3, that was very important to me. I got into Web3 because I saw a world where the intersection of blockchain and user experiences was unexplored, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the first people who got into Web3 is mostly developers, and they're like, look at this cool technology, and we're using the blockchain, and look at all the cool things we can do. And it was awesome if you're a geeky dev guy. And then like the second wave of people who got into Web3 were business, finance, and marketing, and they financialized everything. And they're like, look at how much money can be made here for you and for your customers and your businesses. And that was awesome. And I'm just like, where are the product people? Where are the user experience people? And they weren't there. And it was very frustrating. So I'm like, I have to come over there and test some of these hypotheses I have out. I don't know if they're going to work.
Right.
But I want to show people that there's more to Web3 than number go up. And it also will have number go up. But like the front of the page, the back of the box, the bullets will have the experiences that you could not have without this technology.
Yeah.
And that's what excited me. And I decided that in 2017 that was exciting to me. And I went to talk to all my game designer and game developer friends, and they were like, yeah, that's money laundering and drug dealers, and you're going to go to jail if you do that. And I'm like, come on, can you not see the future? And they're like, no, I can't. And so I got really frustrated. And I went out in 2021, just anyone who said blockchain and game, I was in their Discord. If they were minting an NFT, I was on it. I probably minted 1,000 NFTs that year. And everybody who mentioned blockchain and gaming or anything like that, I was in the DMs of the founders. Can I help you? Like, let me see your idea. I will give you feedback. Like, I just want to make this world better and find that intersection. And man, I must have talked to 8 or 10 CEOs or co-founders in that time during the NFT boom, if you were around in 2021. And man, there were so many people who just didn't have a long-term product first vision. Like, they were all like, yeah, we're going to try some stuff. We're going to launch a token. It's going to be awesome. We're all going to get rich. And, if things don't work out, it's fine. We're going to spin up something else. And I'm like, no. Come on.
This ain't cool. And
like,
so take this, because this is a perfect segue, man, into, I need to touch on 2 things. One, I think I need to reiterate, like, you found it when you get pitched solitaire and you can't even let them finish the sentence. You're like, I'm in. I want to do that, right? Because most people that are in gaming are like, dude, I want to make Call of Duty or whatever the heck it is. And they get pitched solitaire. They're pissed off, right? So thank you for sharing that.
That's so
but
good.
2, I loved the story in our intro call. And because I think this is still very relatable today, is you spent a lot of time in Discords cultivating relationships to figure out the right people that you wanted to build with the right way. Take me through that experience and like things that you can help people understand what they should be doing, what they should be thinking about.
Yeah, so this echoes back to what we were both talking about earlier, where you just you show rather than tell people what you want to do, what you can do. Maybe you find a fit that way. So that's what I was doing for like all of 21 and in 2020 was I'm just like, hey, I read your white paper and it'd be really cool if you guys did that, like that kind of thing. I'm just giving free advice and I wasn't even thinking of it that way. I'm just trying to find the right fit, talking to all these founders. And I met a lot of people. A lot of the guys are still around today, and I'm still talking to them. It's excellent. I'm building relationships, and I'm not a big networker. It's funny, like I'm still an introvert. But it's that this medium and environment was fine, and I was just so passionate that it was easy. Like all of my I'm uncomfortable talking to people or in front of people just was gone because I was so passionate about the future of blockchain and gaming that it just pushed it aside. I didn't feel it,
Right.
And I met a few really interesting folks, although the most interesting person I met was Tim, our CEO, who had this is September 2021 to put a time frame on it. And he, an artist and a developer, had got together and was about to mint the Coin Games development squad. And, everybody's promising different things of their NFTs and the utility and, how you're going to be rich and all of that. Meanwhile, and some of them would say, and we're going to have a massively multiplayer online game in 6 months. So mint our NFT. It's going to be great. Right. It's going to be great. And meanwhile, Tim, with the Coin Games development squad, all he did was promise like, hey, he didn't come from game development. He was a gamer, but he came from sales.
Yeah.
So Tim had this story of like, hey, I love this idea of building something together with community, which is great because I did too.
Yeah.
And Tim said, if you mint this NFT, we're going to build a game together. I don't even have the game team yet. Like I and the other game folks were not even part of Coin Games at that time.
Right.
So Tim just kind of said, hey, if you want to build something together with us, a game, we don't have the game team yet, but we're going to go find them. We don't know it exactly. We have an idea what the game is, but it might change. But if you want to join us on that journey together with us, get these NFTs. And it was a very low bar for promises made during that time. And I'm an under promise, over delivered DNA person myself. And nobody was doing that at the time, right?
Nobody still is doing it.
It's fair. But that was, if you look at all the promises of the NFTs at that time, this is way down there in terms of promising the world. And that resonated well with me. And it actually got Tim and I talking. And man, we must have been on like 4-hour calls. And he's on Eastern time. So he's up till 1 a.m. I'm up till midnight. And we're just, and I asked him, I'm like, Tim, because when it looked like we might work together, I asked him a very direct question. I said, Tim, do you want someone on your executive leadership team, to co-found the studio with you, who will fight for the user experience in sometimes against the revenue opportunity, if that's what it takes to balance that out? Do you want someone like that you're going to have to put up with every day? And he said, he smiled and he said, actually, I want 3 of you. Do you know any more people like that? And I'm just like, okay, this is a match made in heaven. This is going to work out for sure.
Yeah. So I actually, this leads straight into my next question. Founders in relationships and solopreneurs versus working with people. You actually have a little group of people you're working with. Obviously, that aligned with your passion. But when you think about building a relationship with other founders that you're going to build something with, what is most important to you?
Man, that's such a good question. I talk to other founders all the time because I'm not even looking for value or opportunities. I'm that guy who just will sometimes DM somebody who I notice is a founder of another project. He was listening into a Twitter space that I was on. He said like, that's great idea you had there or something. And I'll just be like, do you want to just hop on a chat? And exchange stories. And a lot of them are like, sorry, I don't really have time. But some guys are like, absolutely. And we're just feeling it out. And I think, to answer your question, what do you look for in that? It's like shared values. I would say, do you see the world the same way I do? Are you excited about similar things, even if we come from different backgrounds and places?
Yeah.
And, if the answer is yes, there's definitely a relationship to be had there. And,
Yeah.
I usually don't contact people because I'm like, hey, can we get on your show? Like, that's not why I reach out to people. It's just
Mhm.
like, I want to see if there's a relationship there, if there's a click, that spark or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm usually offering them something. I'm like, hey, I noticed your website had this weird thing. I thought maybe you could try this. And I made a mock-up of it or something. I do that all the time. And I just like to do that. And I enjoy meeting people that way.
Yeah.
And, you get to exchange values and see if they match.
100%. And I think one thing that you said is the value alignment has to be there. But I would also layer on to that, and just another way of what you're saying is I truly do believe you have to build friendships. It has to be a deep, meaningful relationship. I think it goes wrong when you hire somebody, and you hear this all the time. You get somebody at the top of their industry. They're the best of the best of the best of the best because it's the skill set you need, and all goes to hell because they're just not aligned on a human it just goes back to why I do what I do, right? It's such a simple concept, but we make it so damn difficult. It is like you just have to treat people like human beings. You want to genuinely cultivate relationships. You genuinely want good for them. And if you can find those people, the opportunities are endless.
It's so funny because Tim comes from a background of sales, Tim, our
Yeah.
CEO, and he's one of the best in the world at it. Like, and I'm not even, in his career, he was top of the field. And then even when he was selling me on the job, I would be like, I don't know. And then the next thing I know, I'm telling my wife, like, I think I'm going to do it. And she's like, what did he say to you? I'm like, he's got voodoo powers. Right. But one of the things that he told me, like, that salespeople know is that if you don't believe that what you're selling is actually going to make someone's life better, you're not selling it, or you're not going to do a good job, and they're not going to believe you.
Yeah.
So, it's connecting with someone and feeling like you want to make their lives better, and that just so happens to be why you want them to listen to this product idea or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't come from a sales background, and that's not how I look at it. But it's this. My version rhymes with that. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I want to make people's lives better. So I talk about experiences, and, salespeople do it to sell them a product, but only because they actually believe it will do that. And, like, from the bottom of their heart.
Yeah, man, I love it. We got triple digit people watching us, but it's unfortunate in the sense that I do have to watch my son, and we haven't even talked about Project O yet. This is what I do to my guests all the time because this is a space for you as a founder for people to really understand who you are as a human being. But I do not want to do you a disservice as you just came off a killer conference. You had lines out the door, people playing your game. I could feel the energy and excitement as we're DMing through Twitter. Take me through that experience, man. Spill the beans. I'm so
Sure.
excited to hear this.
Yeah, I mean, we're making a trading card game called Project O, and we've got, anywhere between 10, 20, and 30-year game industry veterans working on the game. And we also have something unique, which is, in addition to that, we have, several folks on our team who are Web3 OGs, depending on what year you consider OG, but several of us have been around since 2016, full-time in Web3. So we understand the culture, the needs of the folks here. We understand the profit seekers. We understand the people who are tired of the memes and are looking for, more quality products. Like, we get all of that. And we're trying to make a game that actually doesn't compete with Web3, which sounds weird. But the way we look at it, Web3 is still pretty nascent, and a lot of the games are still trying to find their way. So when we set out to build this game, we said it has to compete with the best in Web 2. And we've done that before, so we're doing it again. But when you think of it that way, you think, okay, well, that if it's going to succeed in Web 2, it has to be really good. Like, yeah, it has to be really good. And in fact, it has to be better than that, because there are people in Web 2 who don't like this space. So there's baggage, and they hear, that's a Web 3 game. Oh, does that mean
crypto bros and NFTs and you're destroying the environment, I don't even want to play it. It's going to be bad. It's going to look like all the other crappy Web3 games. Probably won't even be fun. Certainly it won't look good. And it will probably use predatory monetization tactics to do the whole grift and greed that I see every time I look at that Web3 stuff. I hate it. So you have to overcome that. So not only do you have to build a game that's good, but it has to be 2 notches better so you can get past that. It's insane. We're probably crazy for trying to do it, but we're so passionate that it can be done that we have to try. And so we just came off the back of our Game Developers Conference, or GDC, where we put together a little demo of the game, a very small demo. It's a pre-alpha build of the game. And the analogy that I use is like, if I'm going to bring you into my house, that I'm building this house, I'm going to show it to you while I'm building it. The way that I like to do that is I will let you in one room, the living room, but I will deck out the living room. I'll put wallpaper, a chandelier, a sound system, LED motion lights, right? All soft closed drawers. I will put all that in there, but you look in the kitchen and it's got do not enter tape and the stairs are blocked off. You can't go anywhere else in the house. But the idea is that, like, when you go out of that house, you're going to be like, hopefully you'll be like, holy shit, when are you going to add more rooms to that house? Rather than the opposite of that, where you're like, I tour you through the whole house and you're like, are you going to finish the basement? And I'm like, of course we're going to finish the basement. You're like, okay, man. So it's just very different way of presenting something. And that's what we did. So we polished up a little demo. It was only our moment-to-moment gameplay, no deck building, no card collection, no meta game. And we just let people jam on that. And it was unbelievable. I told you about the imposter syndrome. We had let people see the art style. That resonated really well. And so now all eyes were on the gameplay. And I'm like, man, this is where it's make or break, because we wanted to go really wide. And card games are historically very intimidating.
Yeah.
They're geeky. You got to read paragraphs of text. You need a coach to teach you like what the cards do. And you're like, man, I'm out. So we wanted to make a very, very simple card game that your grandma could learn how to play, but she wouldn't want to because there's a competitive aspect and grandma is going to get wrecked on the ladder. But that's what we wanted to. And we were worried because we were like, either people are going to see it as a children's card game, not for me, or, maybe it's not simple enough. And so we let people sit down and play. We didn't even have a tutorial, and the results were just insane.
That's amazing, man. I'm so glad you're just a good dude. And I remember I was like, how'd it go? And you were like 12 out of 10, like over 10 out of 10. And I wanted to add this too, because Hearthstone is a prime example for me. I loved that game. But the instant it went over like 100 cards, and now my brain had to think way more than I wanted to about the ultimate combinations, I just no longer had fun. And so I'm assuming you're thinking about these things. How do you think about fun aspect when building this?
Absolutely. A lot of people who either loved TCGs at one point in their life or never could get into them, they will cite these pain points exactly like the one that you just did. Yeah. And so I would say that what we're doing isn't revolutionary, but it is evolutionary in that we're trying to hit every single one of those pain points. So I smiled as you were saying that because I'm like, dude, we have the best solve for that. But when I tell it to you, you're going to be like, why has nobody done that? And it's not, oh my gosh, it's brilliant. It's just, that seems such like a no-brainer, we have a progression. I'll tell you what it is. So we're not hanging.
Yeah, I was going to say, dude, you can't just...
I know, I can't just leave that hanging. So most card games, the card pool grows and you just buy packs, and the speed at which you acquire all of the cards is the speed at which you open your wallet or grind for 8 hours a day. You can do it for free, but it takes time, or you can pay and get all the cards, right? And so we're blending that experience, the pack opening dopamine, oh my God, I can't believe I pulled this guy, with a progression that you might see in an RPG where you're like, hey, at level 60, you can get the boots of the whatever that let you walk on water. So we have a progression of cards that you'll get to look forward to as you play. And what that does is if you decide to take a break for 3 months and then come back to it and see what's up, in a game like Hearthstone, you now have 500 cards to fire hose yourself with.
Yep.
And in our game, you're right where you left off. There are new cards out there, and you might see streamers, but you are still here playing people with similar collections to you. So it's almost like hitting resume on your favorite game, and you're like, sweet, I'm right back where I was.
Yeah. So it is very simple. That's such a simple thing, and that's exactly why there's like 6 more expansions the last time I came back to it, and I was like, I literally looked at it. I got to the intro screen of Hearthstone, and I said, "Close, not like sorry, see you later, man." And that was it. That was my end of my career with Hearthstone. And I think there's this again, and I know you're solving this. I love your thoughts on this, and then we unfortunately got to start winding it down. We'll talk offline, but like have to figure out how to continue to make content. I want to play games with you and do all these fun things. We've got so much opportunity. But the what was I going to get at? The competitive thing, right? Like I don't, because there's part of me that's super competitive too, but I like to enjoy games. And one of the things that frustrated me about Hearthstone and these other games is, and even Call of Duty, right? I would play, and I'm not a big Call of Duty guy. And the only reason I played it is because my friends were playing it. But then I got super competitive. But then I got very frustrated that I couldn't be that good, and these people were crushing me. How do you balance that part too?
I love that, because that's one of our product goals. Is I used to, when we were first working on the game, I called it, we want high accessibility for this game. I mentioned we want your grandma to be able to learn it. But there's a flavor of that slices into the competitive experience too, where we want competition to be more accessible. Because I think in a lot of games, if you don't think you can top 100 the world, you get really discouraged, because you're like, what am I going to do? Just get to silver on the ladder and feel good about that? I feel terrible. Or I got into, Legend League and I just get crushed by all the tryhards. That isn't great either. So, without talking about the specific solve, which would take too long, we are aiming to address that so that competition feels more accessible. And as a medium, a casually competitive player, let's call it, you feel like there's a home for me here and I love it. So we want an experience that appeals to that player.
Yeah.
Without making you feel like you're king of the D League or getting crushed by the pros.
Well, even being the king of your league, right? Because you're playing at the right level. And I know they tried to do that like in the Call of Duty atmosphere, but then it, like, once you got to this, and I liked competitive because I liked the maps, I liked the gameplay.
Yeah.
I hated just the casual thing because there was no point to it. I wanted like that competitive vibe. But once I got to like, a certain level, it was impossible for me to progress forward. I was just never going to be that good. And even if I dumped the hours it would take into it, I might go up incrementally. And I was like, this is just not fun for me anymore. So I love the fact that you're addressing that and thinking about that as well, because that is super important. And then talk to me real quick, and then we'll wind it down, which is why does Web3 make this so much more powerful? Because we're really talking about game design elements and how to make it attractive to people to play. But what does Web3 do? Because I love how Tim talked about this. It's almost like 3 different kind of pillars. So not only are you making a game that people want to play for multiple levels, you're thinking about game design, how to keep them in competition, keep them not overwhelmed. But now Web3 is allowing you to merge multiple worlds. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my hypothesis here boils down to what motivates people. And I've been thinking deeply about this since 2017.
Yeah.
And I wrote a little 6-minute read article about the personas that are in Web3 and how we think about them when we're designing product. And it really just comes down to acknowledging that there are people who want to play games. They want to play for fun and the escape that it provides them. There's no expectation of value or profit or any of that. And that's where traditional gamers come from, right? That's where they started. And then there are people who are in the Web3 space primarily to grow their wealth, to grow their portfolio, to see their profits go up. And they also may happen to like games, but that's kind of their core, their primary part. And rather than try to mash that together in a game that might feel like a play to earn experience, we wanted to build, my hypothesis is if you build two experiences that are on either side of a small fence, one that appeals greatly to people who just want to play for fun, one that appeals greatly to people who love to, like, you know, collect and speculate a little bit, and you let people jump that fence if they want, you know, it's a really natural fit that doesn't pollute the other one at all. And it's like, think of it like football and fantasy football. This is the best analogy I could give you. There are people who are on the field running, kicking, passing, and throwing. And there are people who are sitting at home in their living room who love football, but they would prefer to bet on the teams and the players and the stats, right? And neither of them pollute the other. But then you can even have the pro football players who go home and fantasy football in their spare time. So you can do both of those, but they're accretive to each other. They don't get in the way of each other. They're both totally sustainable and they can grow independently. And they're on the either side of a very small fence. They're both
100%. And I love that analogy. And I think no one has cracked this code. And I am so excited that people like you and Tim are trying to crack this code and using Web3. So let's do this. Next 3 to 6 months, as much as you share, don't overshare. I always say that because that's one of the big mistakes Web3 people make as well. I'll ask you my final question. I'll give you my final comments. Wind it down. Call it a day. Was not even near enough time. We've already been talking for an hour and a half, and I feel like we just talked for 10 minutes. So, next 3 to 6 months, what does that look like for you? What are you excited about?
Well, the next 3 to 6 months, we're taking the one room of the house that we showed at GDC, and we're getting into the kitchen now, which in this case is our deck builder and our, you know, experience that goes beyond the core gameplay loop. And we're going to light that up and put it in front of people. Nice. And then we're going to open up the upstairs and put that in front of people. So now we're just adding rooms to the house.
I love it.
Right. And each time along the way, we're going to check it with our community, with our holders, with our game council, with our advisors, with our friends, with our family, because we're building with the community in the truest sense of the word. You know, we're not, let's sell you something and then go dark for 2 years. We're out there. We're in Discord. We're on Twitter. We're on Spaces. You can at us and we will respond. And being present is really important. So what it looks like is we're on the journey building with the community. We're not asking for anything. We're not selling anything. We're just, you know, building the game and showing people what we got and hoping that people enjoy it as much as we like making it.
Beautiful. I think that's perfectly said. I don't think you need to say much more. And if you all are not following Kevin or Project O after this conversation, I don't know what else we can do for you, to be honest, people. If you're listening to this in the future as well, just do it. I can't wait to cut this up, and I'll say that at the end. But last question I ask every guest. I don't know if you've made it to the end of one of my podcasts, but you have now had your first taste of Mikey G and Web3. Please give me your honest and open feedback about how, and not even like feedback, just how did your experience go today?
Loved it. All the ideas I had of what it might be like after watching your show and then meeting you as a person, I'm nodding and saying, God, I wish we had another hour to just chill and talk. Like, which we could do off podcasts, because I don't even care. I just want to chat more. And so, you know, it's cool.
I do. Thanks, man. And I'm so glad that, I mean, I'm 100%, man. This is very difficult to do. You want to talk about product market fit? I got product market fit with founders, right? Everybody gives me this feedback of just a very enjoyable experience, and that's all I'm trying to do. I want you to be heard as a person. I want you to be heard for the brilliant mind that you are, and I think we did a pretty good job of that today. I mean, my closing comments are, again, there was no part of my being that did not wake up this morning and didn't think, holy shit, I get to talk to Kevin today. We get to talk about games, and I couldn't be more excited. Like, was the highlight of my day. I knew it was going to be, and it thoroughly delivered. I hope hundreds, if not thousands of more people watch this, in the sense that being able to see somebody with your passion and excitement, I think is infectious. And I think there's a lot of people that need a little more of that. So I just deeply want to say thank you for showing people that life can be awesome if you do find your passion and you do find your ikigai. If we're I think, totally chopping that up. But it is possible too, right? We talked about and we gave some really good tidbits of how to find that. So thank you for giving those layered things. Because again, we talk about the same things here, but you just layered on some extra angles, which will help fundamentally change somebody's life. Finally, I really do look at this as the beginning of a friendship. I really want to think. I know Tim's busier on the business side, but I love the game side as well too. And I think we have so many more ways to partner and just continue to build content together. So I can't wait. And dude, you're insanely busy. You just gave me an hour and a half of my time and you were talking about how we're going to talk some more. That is the best gift that you've given to me. So thank you so much for being you. And I cannot wait to continue to build this, man.
Thanks, man. You know, you listen to these Web3 shows and you're like, where's the alpha? Where's the alpha? Honestly, in my opinion, the alpha here was the life hacks and the
100%.
philosophical goodies that you shared with me and that we bantered back and forth. I mean, I will remember those forever. That was awesome.
Oh, for sure. That's always the alpha. That's the joke on the whole Web3 ecosystem. The alpha is the human being. You are the alpha. I am the alpha. If people would just listen, they'd know exactly where to go in the space, but they don't want to listen. They want to listen to all the other shitbags that are grifting you. But it is what it is. So with that being said, Mikey G and Kevin are out, and we cannot wait to come back with some more content. You all have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. Later. Now I need to find my mouse.